I recognise the Honourable Ruth Dyson.
I'm very pleased that you recognise me, Mr Speaker. I'd be very disappointed if you didn't after all the time that we've been in this House together. I'm very pleased to speak in support of the motion that's before the House at the moment, but like others, I want to raise some concerns that certainly the Minister who spoke in his opening remarks didn't even acknowledge, let alone address, and that in itself is a bit of a reflection on how this government treats all matters of public interest, all matters of concern that are raised by opposition members, and matters of concern that are, I guess in a way more importantly, raised directly with them by members of the public. They have personified arrogance. They are so out of touch with what ordinary New Zealanders are thinking and feeling, and they are adding to their frustration, to the frustration of many ordinary New Zealanders, but particularly members of the public in Canterbury, by refusing to engage in grown-up conversation. They think they're above it. They think that it's belittling for them to listen to and talk with ordinary members of the public. Mr Speaker, I find that immensely frustrating, and I know that the Office of the Ombudsman, the Office of the Privacy Commissioner, the Auditor-General, although they, of course, given their roles, cannot directly say that, understand that people use their services and access their services more because people are driven away from ordinary conversation by the arrogance of John Key and his ministers and this government. We've just heard from my friend and colleague and fellow Cantabrian MP Clayton Cosgrove about the way that EQC as an organisation is talking to people, is treating people, about how the Minister has made that significantly worse by his deliberate, considered politicisation of EQC, and how that then is reflected in the frustration and despair that our constituents in Canterbury feel. Not long ago, my colleagues and I went with David Cunliffe, our leader, to the home of Dorothy Boyd, Dot Boyd, who was told months and months and months ago that she should pack up her home because any minute now EQC was going to send into her home some builders to repair her damaged home. She was very happy that she was going to be able to move out and have some repairs done. Then they said, oh look, we've changed our mind, we might have to rebuild your home, so we have to demolish your home and rebuild it. And you know, she was accepting of that, although pretty distressed given that she's lived in there her entire married life. Months and months and months later, this elderly woman was living in her home surrounded by packed up contents. She packed up all her belongings in boxes because that's what she was told by the EQC people to do, and she had no idea what was happening. That is a small example of the frustration that people are feeling. When we raised that matter with the Minister, he did nothing. Didn't care enough to get his officials into the room and say, get some action on this case. So we went to the media, and suddenly it became quite important. The only thing that seems to trigger Minister Jerry Brownlee's engagement with the public is media exposure. Well, I don't think that's good enough. That is so arrogant and out of touch. But then, while directing his officials to do something about it, the Minister then came into this House and attacked Labour members of Parliament for raising that issue in the media, and then falsely accused us of not representing our constituents. He was wrong again. It showed not only his arrogance, but his laziness, that he actually took the incorrect information from EQC and used it to politicise the issues of Canterbury, which we have been at lengths to avoid doing. Well, we got an apology. We got an apology from Jerry Brownlee, not for politicising it, but for providing incorrect information to the House. But we then got two subsequent apologies from the chair of EQC and also from the chief executive of EQC, not apologising just for the incorrect information, but apologising for inappropriately providing that information to the Minister. The Minister was wrong to ask for it. the Chief Executive and the Chair of the Board both say that EQC was wrong to provide it. So the Minister owes us another apology. He was wrong to ask for that information. Instead of getting in touch with the issues in our region and doing something about it, as has been recognised by the Ombudsman, the Privacy Commissioner, the Auditor General, the organisations whose votes we are considering in this motion, he should get in touch with what they have been reflecting in their annual reports and start addressing the issues rather than blaming those who raise it. So, Mr Speaker, I'm in admiration of those officers of Parliament who have had the confidence and the understanding of the issues that they're dealing with day in, day out, to raise them directly with Select Committee and make Parliament as a whole aware of them. I remember last year when the Ombudsman came to our Select Committee and talked about the fact that they were funded for 1,000 to 1,500 cases to be dealt with each year, but they had received over 13,000 cases. How is it possible for an organisation to deal with that? She talked about the stress that that was causing for staff, because unlike the national government, her staff care about people and are in touch and understand the concerns that are being raised. She said that it was causing physical and emotional damage to her staff to have to deal with the huge workload they had, understanding the dramatic concerns that some people felt and their need to have those concerns addressed in a timely fashion. The Ombudsman said it was just not possible for the staff in that office to be able to deal with those concerns appropriately given the resources they had. I remember one of the national MPs saying, well, you've raised a serious issue, but your office isn't in crisis, is it? To which the Ombudsman said, yes, actually, the office is in crisis. Now, I'm very pleased that that situation has been responded to. But let me say, from another perspective, Mr Speaker, that it's really frustrating that the government is prepared to put additional money into funding the increased workload for the Ombudsman, and so they should, but are doing nothing about what is causing the additional workload to the Ombudsman, and that's the incompetence of the Minister and their inability to see that their lack of engagement and responsiveness, particularly in Canterbury earthquake matters, is driving people to use the Ombudsman's office. They use the Official Information Act request, they go to the Ombudsman, they go to anyone who they think will listen, because they know that the ministers in this government aren't listening to them at all. Mr Speaker, in relation to the motion that we're dealing with, the other Officer of Parliament that I'd like to comment on is the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment. We have had some very high quality reports produced by the Commissioner, and I just want to put on record that Labour values very much the independence and the robustness of the reports that are issued from that office. It gives us a very good, politically neutral, high quality basis on which to have the debates that are really some of the most critical facing our nation: the vulnerability of species, the contentious issues like the use of 1080, the issues of clean water, fresh water, the vulnerability of our rivers. There are a large number of reports that the Parliamentary Commissioner's Office has raised, and I think they give all of us in Parliament a very good basis for well-informed and robust debate. The Parliamentary Commissioner has just yesterday released her submission on the Environmental Reporting Bill and raises significant concerns. And again, I say that all members of Parliament, all political parties, should be listening. They're in two specific areas, but one really drives at the heart of many concerns that Labour has raised in issues in the past, and that is one of political interference. It is very clear from the Environmental Reporting Bill that the Minister for the Environment wants to direct what is in that bill, and that goes against every recognised standard for best practice for environmental reporting. The basis of environmental reporting, the robustness of it, has to be political independence. It cannot be for the Minister to say those numbers aren't looking too good. I don't want them in the report, so I'll direct whoever's doing the environmental reporting to take them out that year. That is the intention of the current legislation. It's something the Parliamentary Commissioner has raised as a concern. It's something that Labor shares as well. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Thank you. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will please say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Honourable members, the proposed address in my hand here is available on the table, and I shall hand it to the Speaker's Assistant, Roland Todd, to do that. The question now is that the address be adopted. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Having completed that, I will now call on Government Order of the Day number 2. Thank you, Mr Robertson.
Industry Training and Apprenticeship Amendment Bill, third reading.
I call